1974, California was as quiet as usual, but beneath the surface, something dark lurked. In the city of Axilla, the first unexplainable incidents occurred, where women were subjected to brutal assaults in their homes. At first, there seemed to be no connection between the victims. The crimes appeared to be random. But one thing was common between them: the perpetrator's method, which left no trace behind. The police had no idea that these small crimes would be the beginning of a series of horrors that would haunt California for years to come. A year passed, and the Golden State Killer began carrying out his crimes in a serial fashion. The attacks escalated as he broke into homes at night, carefully bound his victims, and raped them. He was always meticulous, ensuring he left no evidence behind, making the investigations spiral into an endless loop. What was even more unsettling was the meticulous approach he employed, and the strange sense of guilt felt by the victims, those who believed that if only they had done something differently, they might have survived. In 1976, with the escalation of the crimes, the killer took things a step further. On one dark night, he crossed the line that separated horrifying assaults from murder. In Sacramento, he committed his first murder, amplifying the fear among residents. This marked the killer's evolution in his methods, revealing his darker nature. Terror spread like wildfire, and the police were no longer dealing with just a burglar or rapist. They were facing a monster hiding among the people. The wave of crimes spread across California as the killer moved from city to city. He broke into homes, murdered and raped his victims, and vanished without leaving a trace. With every new crime, the fear grew, and rumors about the killer's identity spread among the people. But the police were powerless to identify him. Attempts to capture him were endless, but each effort ended in failure. The killer mastered the art of mind games and evading justice. As the number of crimes increased, the police ramped up their efforts. They brought in specialized investigators and began studying the crimes to identify common patterns. However, with every new crime, they found themselves at a dead end. There was no conclusive evidence linking the killer to any of the crime scenes. The police felt helpless, and the closer they got to solving the case, the more the killer disappeared into the shadows. Days passed, and a sense of despair began to envelop the investigations. In 1980, the media began covering the case extensively. The killer was dubbed the Golden State Killer because of his masterful execution of the crimes and his constant evasion of capture. This nickname gave the killer worldwide notoriety, and the case became a topic of daily conversation. As the media pressure mounted, the police made more attempts to catch him, but the killer was always one step ahead, hiding in the darkness. A deep fear began to take hold of California's residents. Then suddenly, without explanation, the crimes ceased. The killer no longer invaded homes or murdered his victims. Investigations came to a standstill, and the police found themselves even more perplexed. Had the killer disappeared forever? Was this the end of the reign of terror? As the killer vanished, the questions did not end, and the case left a cloud of uncertainty in the minds of investigators and the families still haunted by those horrific events. By 1990, years after the crimes had stopped, the police began unofficially closing the investigations. Over time, interest in the case waned, and there was a growing sense that the killer had vanished for good. But in reality, justice waited for the right moment to strike. The case had grown cold in the eyes of some, but many of the affected families never stopped searching for hope in the pursuit of justice. In 2001, the police employed new techniques like DNA analysis. The evidence collected from the crime scenes was examined more thoroughly. With the advent of this new technology, the police felt they might be on the verge of a breakthrough in a case that had long been shrouded in mystery. But even with these new pieces of evidence, it still wasn't enough to unmask the killer, making the situation even more perplexing. In 2016, the authorities decided to resume the investigations. New techniques were now available that hadn't existed when the crime stopped. Samples were collected from the crime scenes, and the police began using modern methods to track down the killer. Over time, new results from the DNA analysis emerged, possibly holding the key to solving the mystery. But the lingering question remained: would they be able to catch him after all these years? In 2018, modern forensic techniques led to a shocking discovery. Joseph James DeAngelo, a retired police officer, was the prime suspect. Despite the decades that had passed, his genetic traces had been left at various crime scenes. The revelation was staggering, as no one had expected that a former police officer could be behind the killings. This moment marked a dramatic turning point in the investigations. In April 2018, Joseph James DeAngelo was arrested after years of searching. The DNA evidence had finally caught up with him, and it held everyone's breath as he was taken into custody. Despite living a quiet life after his retirement, his years of evading justice were finally over. The Golden State Killer had been captured. With his arrest, the details of the crimes began to emerge. It was revealed that DeAngelo had committed over 13 murders and 50 rapes across various locations in California. These facts were shocking, as the man many had thought to be living a peaceful life was behind one of the most terrifying crime sprees in history. In 2020, DeAngelo's trial began. In a California state court, the defense and prosecution worked tirelessly to present compelling evidence of his guilt for the numerous crimes. The trial was intense, and the public watched closely, waiting for a moment of justice in a case that had remained open for so long. In August 2020, after years of investigations and trials, DeAngelo pleaded guilty to the crimes he had committed, leading to his conviction in California State Court. It was a long-awaited moment of justice, closing the file on a case that had become one of the most famous in American criminal history. Source of the case: the case occurred in California, United States, between 1974 and 1986, and was officially closed in 2020.